To my brave travelers, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else who has shown up, welcome back to the tavern/channel. I am your host, Slick, and I know that it's been a while since the last part. I'm actually recording this um, in 2024. I haven't seen you guys since last year, haven't made a video since last year. Hope you're all doing well. I'll stop with the dad jokes. Um, I do apologize that I didn't get this video out when I wanted to. This was actually supposed to be about like maybe 2 to 3 weeks after the first video I had posted. Truth be told, I kind of got very busy and I was kind of severely demotivated by other channels like the Template Institute posting their versions of it and getting a lot of views. I know my channel's small. I know it's not going to get views probably now or ever, even though I would love to kind of just have a lot of views and things. But, you know, um, there's a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes. I've been on vacation for most of the holidays, actually. I've been gone for a really long time since before Thanksgiving, and I've only recently fully settled in and gotten back. And honestly speaking, also, there's some other stuff being worked on right now. Like, there's a new hopefully I'm gonna have a much beefier and stronger PC to work with in a bit, so I won't be working off of the small little jank setup I have that you don't have to worry or concern yourselves about. Um, but you know, I did want to get this part two out. In the last video, I talked about how like you can use different ideas and inspirations that you can grab to create a more creative story, and using that kind of story or concept to kind of really build the setting around. And I talked about like how I took for my first campaign where I talked about like, oh hey, we're gonna grab like humans versus zombies, we're gonna grab like the COVID situation happening, we're gonna grab the Bread Boys inspiration, and we're gonna make a campaign about the Holy Crusaders with shotguns retake Jerusalem from weeb zombies. Now, again, I'm going to say this again like last time. First off, if you haven't seen the previous video, you might as well go watch it because I'm going to refer back to that a little bit. Um, Second thing as well is I know that I'm mostly focusing on like campaign making and stuff like that for tabletop, whether it's D&D, Pathfinder, etc. This technically, from my best understanding, you can apply this kind of stuff to like story writing for your books. You can apply this for like video game making, movie and script writing for movies, TV shows, short films. Ideally, I think, I hope, I don't really have training on that, but I'm kind of just, I will admit, I would love to have more training on like cinematography and stuff, so I'm just going with what I got, basically flying by the seat of my pants. Now, I'm going to continue. The reason I bring up the previous videos, I was going to bring up my new campaign, my current campaign, where I talk about how I have really built the nation. Because this video is about world building, like building the world itself. And I was going to do my current campaign going on that's brand new, that's going to talk about, like, what's going on in my current campaign and how I have that world a lot more fleshed out than my first one. But my players are kind of in the middle of just getting to parts where more of the story is about to be revealed and stuff to them, and I do not want to use this video and spoil something, especially because I know a few of them watch my channel. So rather than doing that, I'm going to just kind of keep going with my first campaign, and I might talk about other references. Because of the fact that my editing software right now is kind of not 100% available because I'm trying to get the other setup going, which might take a couple weeks. Full disclosure, there is a non-zero chance that I'm just gonna slap the map of my first campaign into this background, just call it a day when it comes to editing. I really do apologize. I wanted to get this out there, and I really don't have the time to sit there and try to edit a bunch of really wonky, wacky, different pictures. So you're just gonna have to take this is kind of like a pseudo podcast. Pretend I'm like Adeptus Ridiculous or somebody like that. I don't know. Um, you know. Anyway, point being, let's really get down to this and pretty much world building, how to build the world and stuff like that. Now, I know some people will build the world, build a setting because they think that's really cool, and then they'll build like the story, what's going on. Somebody will be like, it's like, oh, like, why not just create something like the Middle Earth and then add a story after? I don't like that personally. I think that that leads to not as good and not as effective storytelling, personally. I think, and this is all just subjective, I'm no writer. I'm pretty sure somebody in the future will be a writer coming in like, well, actually, like, listen, I'm giving opinions. Take or leave it. But point being, I think having that story really helps the world building because if you know what the story you want to go for is, you can really cater the world building to suit your needs in whatever situation. So, for example, I talked about how I wrote a campaign about holy crusaders with shotguns retake Jerusalem from weave zombies. Well, that's already crazy. Well, that already sets the stage. There needs to be weeb zombies that exist in the world. There needs to be crusaders with shotguns, and Jerusalem has to exist. Now, I didn't want to take real life Jerusalem and take all of that geography, so I turned Jerusalem into an island. And this island is kind of set in the center of this huge body of water, and about maybe I forget if it was a month or two of like 2 weeks or 2 months worth of travel away from Jerusalem to the crusading nation, that much water has to be traveled by boat, so they have to sail out there. Now, obviously, this is a land of crusaders with shotguns. So I'm gonna put this map. This map's already been in the background. The nation is called Altrema. No, I did not realize when I was making this that Altremen existed. Pure coincidence. I like to joke that the hand of God was clearly in that situation. So, but point being, this nation obviously has to be crusaders. So I kind of took some inspiration to create this nation, and it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna have like a pope kind of figure lead this nation. He'll be known as the true father, and he basically communes between his people and leading his people and taking the messages of their god, the holy being. Yes, his name is the holy being, and kind of just taking any visions that he receives, any messages or anything like that, and he tells his people about it. And there's other people involved too, like there's a guy simply known as the Speaker. No, I wasn't really thinking about Destiny 2 when I made that name, so if you're a Destiny 2 player and you're going, well, you just stole the Speaker from Destiny. No, that was not intentional at all. Please, bear with me. Um, his whole shtick is like the true father receives the messages of the holy being, go like makes a declaration to the people, stuff like that, handles the more like up there day to day, like ruling of the nation and stuff like that. The speaker is like, I'm gonna go on a mission, and he's just gonna travel, spread the good word and stuff like that. He mostly stays within country, just kind of talking to the day-to-day people, making sure everyone's doing okay, helping translate and help decipher like visions that people receive or messages, and try to understand what the holy being is telling the individual to think. The speaker is more of like the I'm gonna go talk to the people while the big boss is handling like everything else, managerial style. Um, Obviously you have the Crusaders, crusading military. There you go. Shotguns. The idea for the shotguns, this is still in like the pseudo medieval kind of ages, was the vibe stuff going on. So I really just went with the simple explanation that there are mystical beings. Obviously, it was D&D, so we had to have magic exist in the world and stuff like that. And taking the artificers, there's like five great ancient artificers who are able to see glimpses of the future and see technology in the future. And they are able to learn how some of it works and bring it back to their nation or bring it back. Now, they can't just grab the weapon itself, they have to decipher how it is made, how it works, and make a crude version of it at the time. So, for example, they saw visions of like revolvers, old flintlocks, and like the flintlocks and rifles, bayonet, like not bayonets. What's the other one? Shotguns. Obviously, there was another one. There's another gun that was in the game. I don't remember that I added, but they had these crude understandings of these machinations and these strange weapons of war, and they were able to, with the resources they could find in their time, be able to create like very crude prototypes, create very crude versions of it and stuff like that. So these are like These are going to be more of like firearms. Revolvers at the very like crude beginnings, more of like I guess if you've seen the if you've seen the Critical Role animation, The Legend of Vox Machina, Percival's firearm, I am completely blanking on the name of it right now, and you would think that I would know it. That kind of like revolver technology, like primitiveness, um, and things like that. Because cannons also have to exist at this time, mortars too, for dumb reasons called if I have shotguns, I have cannons. And the rest of the map, I'll be honest, is the rest of this map is more fleshed out for backstory reasons, and I'm gonna go much more into that in the next episode, which I'll have this one up again this map again when I talk about it, but I'll be sure to have other people's pictures and be like, oh hey, this area, this was happening. Um, but a lot of the locations you're gonna see here were kind of like, oh, other races live in this area here and there. This area is not as like into the Crusaders, or this group has like a pseudo alliance. The pseudo alliance I referred to the dwarves, and just a lot of the lore for the map. The initiality was designed to be a campaign where the party would muster the forces that they could across the land, taking back what grounds they had lost to the zombies, and then moving to the north where there were a lot of ports, but mostly going to Port Crown, a very strong, well defended, like port city, fortress stronghold kind of thing. And from there, they would sail out to Jerusalem. Now, of course, the party didn't really know this, but obvious at the time. But spoiler alert, um, the Weeb zombies were not the only part of this campaign. That was actually only the first half. The second half of my campaign was basically insurrectionists and outsiders taking control of the country, and the party having to come back and liberate their homeland once again, which is kind of why you can see that they're kind of bordered by other nations on the left and the right. Now, you can't really, I don't have maps for the other two, but on the left you have the nation Serpentarius, which is filled with like very bloodthirsty, barbaric warriors who valued strength over everything. Blood spillage, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne kind of bullshit. But it wasn't really a there was real no need to flesh more of it out, other than the fact that they were constantly at war with the Outremerns on the Outremer western border, and on the eastern border they were facing the Vixorn, which I'm going to be completely honest, you could probably figure out which group I'm making a jab at here. It was all farmland and only 5 major cities, one of them being the capital, and they were just going to drown you in blood. Figured it out yet? Yeah, probably. And so the Vixorn were at war with the Outremerns, but the main reason that those two existed was because there needed to be a justified force that would invade with help from inside traders while the party was away. And that was the real reason that those two nations existed, and why Outremer wasn't just right next to Jerusalem. I needed that distance to be able to justify this insurrection happening and take over, and to give it that time for them to set up their own defenses and stuff like that as the party was gone. So I'm kind of just rambling. I know this isn't a lot of sense. I really apologize that I'm just kind of like trying to get my footing back in this. This is a topic I really want to make videos about. This is a topic that I love. I love being able to conceptualize storytelling. I love being able to do this kind of stuff, and I feel like I'm not doing these videos justice. And I really do apologize um to 15 15 minutes or less with these kind of videos. And I feel like this is stuff that I could just sit there and ramble and ramble and ramble for about like half an hour to an hour, and yet these would all be like very random rambles that wouldn't really make sense. And that's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm here for. So, I think this is not a really bad spot to kind of call it off, because I've talked about the current map for my campaign. I don't want to talk about my new ongoing campaign quite yet. There's a lot going on that the party's not aware of, and I don't really want to spoil a lot of that. So, for now, I think this just kind of short run is going to be where I leave it. And so yeah, um, I do want to thank you guys for watching. I know that this was kind of just a very quick ramble, not really a lot of sense coming through this, I think. I'm hoping that what I talked about and why I designed things makes sense the way it did. You know what? I'm going to go past the 15-minute marker here. Um, the reason I bring all this up and to kind of wrap the whole point, make it make sense. Why do I bring up like, oh, hey, I designed this with these in my, well, I talked about all this to kind of give an idea of how I went into it because obviously you need to have a plot that's going to have sense. You're going to need to have a plot that can seem feasible and authentic. And building that world around that plot helps you with that. Like, for example, I literally designed a distance between Jerusalem and the country where the Crusaders are in order to justify having the outside nations that were at war with them be able to have that time to infiltrate, invade, and take over the land. I designed like how designing how the government for this nation works to be able to justify the Crusaders with shotguns and not just taking like a full rip off of like, oh, just assume this or just bullshit this and don't really care. Not let it make sense, you know? Um, Granted, this was my first campaign. A lot of the lore doesn't fully make a lot of sense, and it's not really going to because I didn't really know what I was doing or getting into when I was writing this. But there's a lot of other details, like for example, certain players who have certain connections to certain areas, they may have like family houses nearby, or they may have like certain events or stuff, or they hail from a certain part of the land. And I'm going to talk more about the backstory stuff in the next episode. So, um, but I really just hope that the main takeaway, if you get anything from this video, really is going to be the fact that, you know, you can building the world when you have a story is a lot easier because you are able to say, okay, what do I need for this plot to make sense? And adapt and add that rather than, you know, building that world, all that existing, and then forcing a plot to make sense, you know? And I just want you to understand that, like, when you're building a world, the best thing that you can try to do is make sure that it can handle and accompany anything that gets thrown your way, whether it's certain story elements or certain like, oh, this is a little tidbit I want on the side, or this is here for like reference and nothing more, or this is just here because it's cool. Well, you know, have that there. Make sure it's cool. Make sure it works, you know, and it's not breaking anything. Whether it's the immersion in your storytelling or the actual setting or the visible setting of it, like just because it's cool does it fit, you know? Like you don't want to have a giant Imperial Star Destroyer in the middle of like like you don't want to have an Imperial Star Destroyer in the middle of like Middle Earth. That makes no sense, you know? So, but you know what? With the power of believing that anything works hard enough, it will work, is just, you know, storytellers sometimes feel like orcs. I'm not gonna lie, because just if you manage to just believe it works hard enough and convince your audience it works, then it works. You know. Oh God, I'm getting the Warhammer references all over my videos now. This is a problem. Okay. Um. Yeah, but with that, I do want to genuinely, now finally, thank you for watching. I hope this video was somewhat productive, somewhat enjoyable. I hope that this really works out for you guys. And just go ahead, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about the strategy. Does this work? Do you have another way you go about this? I would genuinely love to know. And if you're also willing, if you have characters with interesting backstories, whether you've made them up yourself for, you know, your own books, your own TV show, stuff like that, or you have like tabletop characters with cool backstories and stuff like that, leave them in the comments below. I would love to read them, and I might reference it in the next video, which I promise will be out before. There's probably going to be a really weird, funky little edit right there where the audio just splice, like suddenly just drops and comes back in. Uh, my headset just decided to turn itself off in the middle of recording right there. But anyway, that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you actually enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that way you're well aware of whenever I post whatever videos are coming next. And just, yeah, I think that's everything. So stay safe, stay healthy, stay tactical. This is Slick signing out for tonight. Cheers and welcome to 2024.